Yes, this is my Suzuki Jimny. I bought it 2 months ago and I've already crashed it. Welcome to the Jimny Diaries. Yes, this is my Suzuki Jimny. It's a 2008 model with 20,000 miles on the clock, and it is lavishly equipped in the JLX Plus trimline. That means you get front fog lamps, alloy wheels, body coloured bumpers, lovely metallic paint, which is a bit dirty here, sorry. Inside you have leather and fabric upholstery, air conditioning, a CD player, and on top of all that, a pair of roof rails. Under the hood we have a 1.3 litre petrol engine that produces 83 brake horsepower and 81 foot-pound of torque. All that torque comes in quite low on the rev range though, so it does make it feel a bit more punchy than it actually is. Power is sent to the rear wheels via a 5-speed manual gearbox or a 4-speed automatic. Even on this, the highest spec Jimny, there is still a lot that is left to be desired on the rather Spartan interior. The centre console, for instance, is this one swathe of black plastic, and the stereo head unit is frankly quite big compared to modern standards. Beneath that you have this rather clunky and plasticky set of climate control knobs and sliders, but the good news is you could probably operate these while wearing gloves. Beneath that there is the button for the electrically heated wing mirrors and rear glass, and then next to that you have the controls for the 4-wheel drive system. 2-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive and 4-wheel drive low. Next to that though there is a blank button which you can't push, and it does make you wonder on this, the top of the range model, what do you have to specify to get that button to do something? Beneath that there is the ashtray and an old school style cigarette lighter, which also badly dates the vehicle. To the right of the steering column you find more switches for the front fog lamps and the rear fog lamps, which are inexplicably different styled buttons, one more blank switch, and the controls for the electric door mirrors and the manually adjustable headlights. Storage-wise, the Jimny has you rather well covered, with these extremely long door pockets and a neat elastic strap to help stop things rattling around as you're going along. Also in the front, you get this rather weird little tray in front of the gear lever, which I don't quite know what you could put in there, but it would probably fall out as you're going along. Then over on the passenger side you have this nice shelf for keeping your sunglasses case on as you're going along, and beneath that the glove box, which you can lock using the ignition key. Behind the handbrake you get 2 cup holders, which are a little awkward to access while driving along, but you get into the knack of it. And then next to the handbrake there's another little pockety item, which you could probably keep things like your phone or your wallet in if you want to. And finally, in the back you get this rather useful little storage tray with a cup holder tucked away at the front for those sitting in the back. And right in the boot you do get this rather odd little storage compartment with a little lid. Don't quite know what you'd keep in there, but it's nice to have it. So that is the Suzuki Jimny, inside and out. But the question is, what's it like on the go? On the road, the Jimny is a series of swings and roundabouts. For every good, there is a bad. The first good, however, is there is an awful lot of glass space in the car. Due to its old design, you get these rather narrow A-pillars, which give you a fairly good sense of what's going on around you. You can see everything from right over your right shoulder to right over your left. And it does provide you with a fair bit of confidence when off-roading, because you can see exactly where you're placing the vehicle. And the same applies pretty much on the road. You can see everything that's going on around you. You can easily spot things coming at you from side junctions. But there is also a down to that. A lot of glass space does mean that it gets quite hot in here. You get a ridiculous greenhouse effect that's kicked up on hot days, like the days we've been having recently in the UK. It does mean that when you come to get back into this Jimny after leaving it alone for a while, the black plastics have picked up a fair amount of heat and are almost scalding to the touch. Suspension-wise, the Jimny is a rather rudimentary affair with live axles front and rear. And I don't think it has anti-roll bars, which explains why roundabouts are a rather toppling affair. Go into one too quick or put your foot down mid-corner and the car starts to lean rather perilously, so much so that passengers usually end up really reaching for something to grab onto. Factor in the rather unsupportive seats, it does mean you get thrown around quite a bit from the driver's seat and indeed every other seat in the car. Getting thrown around is a rather common occurrence, however. In any sort of bump, speed bump or such item like a raised junction, the Jimny's short wheelbase and stiff suspension does sort of almost bounce you out of the seat, rocking you back and forth like you're on some sort of seesaw or rocking horse. It's almost whiplash inducing, to be honest. But that is one of the negatives. One of the other positives of the Jimny, however, is it does have a rather calm ride. Get it on a smooth road and get it at a rather comfortable cruising speed. The ride does level out. It's not too firm. It's a little bit jiggly, but not crashing, so to speak. However, getting the Jimny up to cruising speed is a different matter entirely. At the moment we're cruising at 55-ish and pulling, like I said, 3,000 RPM, but this is about as much as the Jimny is really happy to do. Motorways are not this car's forte. Its short gearing provides rather good acceleration for 83 brake horsepower in an SUV shaped like a house brick, but after that you sort of run out of aero and run out of power. You do find yourself working the gearbox quite a lot just to keep with things. However, get the Jimny out on some winding country roads and it is a rather fun drive to be had. While it's not exactly a Lotus through the corners, you can turn it in and feel what the chassis is doing underneath you, courtesy of its rather rudimentary design. It does give you a fair amount of feedback. You can feel when the front end is starting to lose purchase or when the back end is starting to come round to trim your line if you come off the throttle. So, it's not sporty, but it's communicative, and I think that's probably the best way of putting it kindly. Other than that, it's just a bit sluggish, really, and as you can see here through the corners, I'm having to, like a motorcycle, lean in to try and stay in my seat. The brakes are, well, they leave a lot to be desired, to be honest. You push the pedal and not much happens for quite a long part of the travel, and then you start to think you're slowing down as you feel the pedal tense beneath your foot. And you do gradually start to slow down, but you'd really have to eyeball the speedometer to really notice any change in your speed, because you certainly can't feel it from where you're sitting. The steering is light and relatively decent, if I'm honest. You can turn the wheel, and if the car is under power, you can feel it sort of tense a little bit and give you a bit of feedback as to what you're doing, but otherwise it's a sort of fairly vague and puddingy sort of steering that results in just a lot of body roll, especially through tight bends if you turn in a bit quick. One of the Jimny's shortcomings is, however, its short chassis. The wheelbase is exceedingly short on this car, which gives you a fairly good breakover angle when you're off-roading, but on things like speed humps such as these frankly enormous ones coming through a village near my house, you really do notice when you hit them, as the front end sort of bounces over them and then the back end is just forced to bounce over quite quickly before you've even settled down from the front end, which does sort of throw you around a bit with a whiplash effect, which is most uncomfortable, even at speeds well below the limit posted here. Look at that, safe. The gearbox is a rather baggy 5-speed affair, and while this one only has 20,000 miles on the clock, you get the impression that it rolled out of the factory like this, which isn't brilliant, to be honest. You get the sense that you're pushing home a gear as you move the stick around, but you're never sure where you're pushing that gear home to. The gates are rather wide and the play is ridiculous. Even in gear you've got like an inch overall movement on the stick, which just seems a little excessive. When the third generation Jimny was launched in 1998, it came with the tagline, "Smart in the city, tough in nature," and you do get a sense that it is rather smart in the city, courtesy of the short overhangs, the nippy steering,
It does, and generally small dimensions, it does work quite well as a city or town car. You can exploit most small parking spaces and cut through the narrowest of little cuttings through car parks and side alleys, so it is rather smart in the city, and as I will no doubt prove in a later episode, it is rather tough in nature. The problem is bridging the gap between the city and nature on country roads like these, where you have turns that tighten midway through, or turns that jump up on you, and you have to stand on the rather unresponsive brakes. This is where the Jimny starts to come rather undone. It isn't a car built for B roads, it's a car built for what you do when you get off the B roads onto roads where there's no tarmac at all, or roads where the tarmac is smooth and you're just surrounded by buildings and car parks. So it's a car of two halves really. Great in the city, great off-road. Not so good at doing that in the middle bit. Really struggles there. This has been a quick look at my Jimny, both inside and out, and indeed on the road. Hopefully in the next video we'll start to work on the Jimny. Not necessarily modifications, but just fixing the stuff that I've already broken. No surprises there.